fictional friends, and welcome to another episode of Fully Booked. I'm Megan.
I'm Arthur.
And it is officially the month of April. It's April Fool's Day. Well, it's not April Fool's Day when we're recording this, but
it will be April Fool's.
It will be sometime
soon.
Before this episode goes
And the segue of April Fool's and being April is...
the theme of the month.
That's right.
Terrible.
Okay. I'm a master of segues.
Oh, very nice. Yes, it's a brand new month, which obviously means a brand new theme for us. And so this month, for the month of April, we're going to be talking about tricksters and fools in literature and everything sort of in that vein, you know, where they came from. They've existed for much longer, I think, than a lot of people think about on a regular basis. You know, maybe where some inspirations for more modern stories come from, some of the origins of them, how they exist and persist in folktales and folklore to this day in many cultures globally, which is always like something fascinating. I'm always a fan of like myths and folklore and stuff that's passed along. So anyway, we're going to be covering all of that for the entire month of April, obviously here on the podcast, but also on the website at fullybooked.ca. And you guys can head over there and check out everything that we have going on content-wise on a regular basis as well, because of our lovely team of contributors who are always adding things to the pile.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't know if we had anything else before starting. Oh, you know what, though? One thing I just did want to touch on super, super quickly, just because it felt like relevant news to a degree, is so apparently this happened way back at the beginning of March, but was only reported on a few weeks later. So unfortunately, LJ Smith passed away.
Yeah.
Actually, March 8th, it turns out. But none of this was reported on for a few weeks because I assume her family maybe waited a little while before making an announcement. Famously, the author of the Vampire Diaries novel series, as well as a few other YA series, including like Secret Circle and a couple of others as well that were quite popular. I mean, Vampire Diaries was wildly popular, massive TV show that people still watch to this day. So that's unfortunate. She was only 66 years old, which is, you know, quite young, particularly in this day and age as well. Unfortunately, it appears from complications due to an autoimmune condition. So that's unfortunate. Anyway, you know, rest in peace. And that's a loss for the literary world, especially in the YA sphere. So that's too bad. Okay, so anyway, switching gears, shall we get into some origins and some myths and legends that include tricksters?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
So, you know, to start off, obviously, what is it? What is a trickster?
Yeah, okay.
What do they do?
So, as a rule anyway, in mythology, folk tales, fairy tales, whatever you'd like to call them, as a rule, tricksters are a multitude of different things. They can be a god, a spirit, an entity of some sort that exists, and they possess, generally speaking, a very high level of intellect and cunning, and they use those skills in order to play tricks on others. Sometimes they can be not very serious, just silly little things, and sometimes they can have pretty dark and massive consequences depending on the legends that you're taking a look at, really.
Yeah.
They're normally portrayed as entities who defy rules and regulations or anything that's considered like the norm. They go against
they're like boundary crossing, morally ambiguous type of thing.
Yeah, they go against societal norms. Their actions can be viewed as simply mischievous or engaging, and a lot of the time that sort of overshadows the outcome of what they're doing, because sometimes it can be very devastating, but we tend to just focus on the fun parts of these things. So actually, funny enough, I was reading a little bit, and, you know, in many cultures globally, because of course there are legends everywhere that include tricksters in them in some capacity. But I was reading that actually, so spirits in Native American folklore, like First Nations folklore, so spirits like coyote or raven, which are used sort of like very frequently in different tribes, they apparently are often seen as more prankster types.
Okay.
And a lot of what they do is humorous and funny, because a lot of First Nations groups, basically, like their legends that they pass down, it's believed that laughing before praying helps to like free you from a lot of the things that are holding you down. And so a lot of the stories that they have that involve those types of like trickster-ish spirits tend to be more humorous than anything else. So like Coyote does like mischievous things and plays pranks and does stuff like that because it's something that's supposed to be more lighthearted.
Oh, okay. Do they have like a goal usually to do that? Or is it just to kind of funny entertain, or is there ulterior motives?
There are always, I mean, First Nations folklore always has a reason. Like there's always a message, there's always a theme within their folktales, which a lot of the time will have something to do with nature. It will have something to do with the various different gods of the past and things like that. But all of them do have, it's like sort of, it's the same thing as reading like a more Eurocentric like fairy tale. There tends to be like a message.
Right.
It. Like there's something to learn from it essentially, or it provides like a reason for even something like a it's passed because they were verbally passed down a lot, and some of them would even be passed down as something to perhaps explain like why a particular natural disaster took place centuries ago. You know.
Well, that's super interesting. Well, and actually, this is one of the literary tie-ins of how tricksters, I guess, made their way into literature.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was. Oral traditions and mythology,
yes.
Where it kind of originated, but then it entered, I guess, part of the literary thing because a lot of the stories used to be told, orally, and then they were written, and then there were movies and adaptations and whatever it is and retelling. So that's kind of what it is. It's they were written into those stories either as partial fact or whatever it is, or they use those to write. Again, stories or character
that
archetypes.
Would have a moral perhaps attached
That's
to
it, like a retelling of something. Yeah, exactly. And then, I guess it worked really well because they are still around today.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So. And that's it. I guess we're just lucky enough that as a people entirely, we, took the idea of these oral traditions and actually had folks start writing them down so that they wouldn't totally be lost necessarily. So we've managed to keep a lot, I think, because people started keeping detailed records of these stories that would be passed down between generations, which is cool.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think tricksters, they make you feel uncomfortable? Or, because they reveal something uncomfortable about the world? Sometimes
I think sometimes in some instances, in some stories, that can be the case.
Yeah.
In the same way that, we just spent March talking about villains, and sometimes a compelling villain in a story, like a compelling trickster, who can often be seen as a villainous character as well.
Or an anti-hero type of thing, right? Exactly.
Or like a morally ambiguous, morally gray kind of hero in some weird way. I think that because, again, we were exactly what we were just saying, tricksters themselves tend to push against the norm and decide to not follow what's considered acceptable in society, essentially. I think that the points that they often make in tales force people to maybe examine certain aspects of those norms that maybe will make them uncomfortable to a degree. So it kind of challenges your notions about things.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. So before, I guess, we go into some more known tricksters and kind of talk to them a little bit about them, I have a question for you. Maybe it's a trick question.
Oh, God.
Maybe it's not. It's a trick question. Which Norse trickster god gives birth to an 8-legged horse?
Loki gives birth to a horse? Or is it a different one? I don't know.
I need an answer.
I don't have one. Loki's the only Norse trickster god I'm super aware of. A trickster specifically? I don't know.
Well, you did not get tricked by my trick question. It is actually Loki. Apparently, he shapeshifted into a mare and gave birth to
oh, weird. Okay.
An 8-legged horse.
Sure.
In the tales and everything that he's done.
The number of stories that exist in which tricksters throughout, in different cultures, in different ways, are portrayed or interpreted in a different way and do different things. You could... And they would take up just tomes just about one at a time.
And the crazy powers they have, just for Loki specifically, since we're talking about it, right? Loki, you think of trickster, you instantly most probably think of Loki right away.
You kind of do. Yeah, that's it. Obviously, that's it. He's, I think, obviously due to the marvel of it all, too. Of course, Loki is probably one of the most famous tricksters on the planet in terms of, especially how long he's lasted, of course, because he's, part of ancient Norse mythology and Scandinavian mythology, and is often seen as an adversary for the other gods of Asgard, essentially, because he tends to be a foil to them, because he's usually up to something in some capacity. It seems like some iterations of him are more quote unquote evil than others, in the sense that they have more sometimes he really is more of just a trickster, just he plays pranks and does weird stuff for fun. And then other times his plans are much more nefarious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, like, there's been multiple adaptations or usage of that character in books.
Yeah.
A lot, you know.
Many, yeah.
But one that I found, which was very interesting, and I might pick it up because it sounds cool.
Yeah.
So it's the Gospel of Loki by Joan M. Harris.
Okay.
Right? And the cool part about this is that it is a first-person narrative from Loki's point of view, and it's like full of sarcasm and self-justification.
Okay.
Which is very different.
Okay.
You know, but sounds also really cool.
That does sound interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun. So yeah, God. Okay. So obviously Loki's like the big one to kick off things, of course. But that's it. Like we said, there are several other ones in multiple different countries across the world. So, on the African side of things, there's a character like
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, exactly.
Anansi is one who we have seen in some more popular culture, as well in terms of like novels, as well as like a little bit of film and TV stuff. He is one that recurs from time to time.
Yeah, and you know what's the general or the usual appearance of that trickster in many folk tales?
He is a spider.
A spider, exactly.
He's normally a spider. He appears in many different African folk tales.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, again, he plays pranks and tricks, and he has. My understanding is that he has a particularly high sort of opinion of himself. He believes that no one can outwit him, and I believe that in the old folk tales, that is often his doom. Essentially,
right?
Is he dooms himself by believing that no one is smarter or better than he is. Let's see, on the European side of things, this is one that's actually kind of fun. This is like multiple characters. It's not just one. But if you look back at a lot of particularly Celtic folktales, you hear a lot about the fair folk. The fair folk these days will more likely be referred to as fairies or fae. And in the older tales, like that's not what you think of now, right? Like now we're like a court of thorns and roses fae. Like we're thinking of like 6'3" men with giant wingspans.
Yeah, hot
like
fae.
It's a very and obviously with like very complex characters and like a lot going on. The fair folk themselves were often like first of all smaller. If you think of like the Tinkerbell style fairy, right, teeny tiny.
Yeah, and technically they were tricksters at the beginning.
They were seen as very mischievous, and you still on occasion
sometimes
you still get it a little bit, like or like different interpretations or versions of them. Like if you watch Harry Potter, pixies are still a thing,
right?
And stuff. Or like if you read those, like pixies are very mischievous, and they do things that they're not supposed to do all the time. It's very annoying. Like all those kinds of things. Like you do get them on occasion, but it is rare now. We've totally gone in a different direction with particularly fae, which is how they're mostly referred to nowadays.
Right.
But if you look at the old stories, that version was very different.
It's true. And speaking, I guess, of old stories, trick question for you.
Oh, God.
Well, I mean, you will know this one. I mean,
everything's like a quiz for me. Every episode is like a quiz for Megan. Let's just see how stupid she sounds.
Oh my God, or how smart. Well, I mean, this one's Shakespeare related, so I'm pretty sure you'll get it because you've read so much of it. Okay, so which Shakespearean character modeled after the Fool archetype uses wordplay and performance to reveal deeper truth?
Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Which other one does that as well?
Oh my God, I don't remember.
The Fool in King Lear, but also what you said is correct.
Okay, yeah, fine. He does. It's true, but also like it's different. Anyway, whatever.
Not the episode, but let's go with Faye and the other ones.
Yeah. There are also trickster-like characters from places like Japan with this particular entity called a kitsune. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. They are fox-type creatures that are often shapeshifters, and they play a part in a lot of different Japanese mythology. They have... Generally speaking, it seems like they have little regard for following rules, essentially. So they do what they want to when they want to.
Do you think that tricksters are more powerful in like marginalized literature where mischief becomes resistance? Like, do you think that's part of what maybe they're trying to do, because that's kind of like their way of showing themselves or differentiating themselves, kind of like Loki, right?
Yeah.
Like Loki, he's an outsider.
Yeah, he's a marginalized,
and he was trying to exactly, and he was trying to like make a place for him, and like kids misbehave because they want attention. He was kind of doing tricks to do that, and also to get like the attention of his father or adoptive father. Right?
Yes, exactly. Well, that's part of it, right? It's that feeling of outsider that they have oftentimes because he wasn't technically Odin's son.
Exactly.
He was adopted or whatever. So
yeah, he was found.
Yes, and he feels inferior to Thor because of that.
That's it. So do you think stuff. Like it's written that way, or they do it that way as a because it's like a resistance thing?
Sometimes I'm sure that's the case. Sometimes I'm sure it's not always what someone has in mind when writing a story maybe that features a character like that. But I definitely think that at times, like with a character like Loki, in the more Marvel sense, not like in the older tales, I feel like that was probably part of the motivation for it, was like that feeling of otherness.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's see. On the more North American side of things, you have a character like Brer Rabbit, which is specifically based in folktales from the American South.
Oh,
this is of African American origin.
Oh,
actually,
yeah, I understand.
This character, he always takes the form of a rabbit, basically, and he, generally speaking, he's a little bit of a little trickier one, because with him too, it's a big use of like intelligence and wit that he uses to outsmart like authority figures and go against the grain and things like that. And so that's something that is that you still see to this day. So it's Brer Rabbit, which is, I think, some sort of shortened version of like Brother Rabbit.
Okay, I see. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see who else. There are some versions of, let's say, like the Greek god Dionysus that can potentially be seen as tricky to a degree. So Dionysus is famously the Greek god of wine, madness, the theater in general, and because of the acting portion of that, in many stories he shapeshifts and takes on different forms, so no one ever really knows what he truly looks like. So that is something that he can sometimes use to deceive other people.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. There are creatures or characters, ancient Greece has got a lot of them. There are characters like satyrs, which are like half man, half goat. They were often seen as like tricky characters. There's a god Pan, who was like one of those as well. That's something that you see on a semi-regular basis. Even in those older myths, you've got a character like Hermes, or if you're on the Roman side of things, it would be Mercury, who was the messenger for the gods and can sometimes...
Oh, wait, that's the guy with the wings on the shoes. Yes, exactly. I was like, I know what you're talking about.
In certain cases can also be portrayed as kind of a tricky character, because he has all the information from everybody.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
So he can use it to his advantage.
He's the guy with the T.
Yeah, and one that I came across that I was excited about because I thought it was really fun is a character called Stingy Jack.
What in the world? From where is that?
So he's a character that comes from folk tales to do with All Hallows Eve, which is now more commonly referred to as Halloween. And allegedly, he's also the partial inspiration for the modern jack-o'-lantern. So the pumpkin jack-o'-lanterns that we see these days. So that's just like a sampling of them, really. Like, God, you can find tricksters in every country, I think, around the world.
Of course,
Form of
something
myth.
Somewhere exists. Yep. There's tales. There's someone who said something. Mm-hmm. Back in the days, you see things in the forest and you don't understand it, and you make it into a thing.
And there are some that are like incredibly niche. Some of them are also, they became legends based on real people as well, and kind of became their own sort of mythology in a way, or their own legend in a way, which is cool. God, they're everywhere. Everywhere that you look, you can find older stories that have these in them.
Everywhere. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then, as I guess a bit more of an expansion on it. So we spoke about all the tricksters that exist all over the world and everything, and that they've came from tales and retellings and everything. And they're even still popular now.
Yes. With
the books that we have now, with a bunch of TV shows that were made, that are being made about some different ones, or all the gods at the same time. Yeah. And there's a bunch of books being written, like, a couple of the ones that I mentioned, a couple of ones that we have other examples. Mm-hmm. So what do you think that they persist in literature still? Because we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of years at this point. Thousands of years. Exactly.
I think that people... I think the way that fairy tales persist, things like myths and legends do as well. I mean, we all like to, a lot of us anyway, I should say, would like to read or watch or whatever, hear in some capacity about some sort of otherworldly entity, like the idea of something else that exists that maybe helps to twist certain realities or make certain things happen. I think people just find that fun and fascinating. And I feel like these characters that were created way, way back when many of them originally were just such good, almost archetypes at this point, essentially, and like laid the groundwork for so many stories that would come afterwards.
Yes.
That we can't help but kind of go back to the original on a regular basis too. So that's why there are so many, that's why we have lists on the site of like Greek mythology retellings and things that have these characters in them that have existed for eons, or retellings, modern adaptations or versions of like, older legends or things like that, or even more modern trickster characters that might be their own kind of like version of the character, but were definitely inspired by an original of some kind. Yeah. That's just something you see all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, that's fair. I also think that, they are probably, maybe at the beginning there were, maybe not necessarily as much now, but, they kind of allow authors to critique institutions. Like religion, gender roles, empires, whatever, governments and stuff like that, right? Because they are essentially a fool of the story or whatever it is, and what were fools, as they are known now, used back in the feudal ages, right? They were making fun of stuff. They were basically the only one allowed to make fun of the king and not die instantly.
Yeah, so, I'm sure some of them did. Anyway,
I mean, yes, of course, but that's it. So, they are like the critiques of the institution of one thing.
I have, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I have one book. Actually, should I leave that for when we talk about book recommendations that we might have for these?
I mean, it's coming up
very
soon.
All right. I'll talk about it soon.
Right. And then what I wanted to mention as well is that kind of like it allows also the author to write or to inject a part of the story that disrupts the narrative, in a sense of when you are reading a part of the book or a story or whatever it is from the trickster perspective, I feel like it almost instantly becomes as an unreliable narrator.
Kind of,
you know what I mean?
For a lot of them, definitely. And people love an unreliable narrator.
That's it, exactly.
We're going to talk about it this month a little bit too, but people love an unreliable narrator.
That's it, exactly. So like it plays into that as well, right? Yeah. And sometimes it's also kind of like sometimes not non-linear. Because they can just be all over the place.
True, yeah. Well, because oftentimes too, these types of characters are supernatural beings of some kind as well. As soon as you start adding a little bit of a magical element to something, it can really take the story in a different direction, because then you can explain everything away with magic.
Yeah, that's it.
Hey. Any plot device you decide you'd like to utilize, any twist you would like to add that I guess in another type of story wouldn't make sense, you can just, magic. So, yeah.
Yeah, he just appeared behind him and moved the chair, and that's why the character fell down the well.
Yep.
I feel like that's a little bit Deus Ex Machina there. It's kind of lazy if you do that, but
it can be, for sure.
You have to do it in a fancier way.
Well, I mean, you have to do it in a more elevated way, for sure. But when utilized correctly, it's definitely a very good device, obviously. Just as those characters are so great and such great uses as a rule.
Exactly. So then where would people be able to find those characters and their great uses? Book recommendations. Come on, just segueing here.
Use your words. Oh, God. If we go with the older stories, anything Rumpelstiltskin.
Okay, yeah. That's cool. That's fun.
Rumpelstiltskin's probably a really good example of that. It's a Grimm's fairy tale about a young woman who is supposed to be married off to a vicious king. Her father lies and says that she can spin hay into gold. Like, who the hell can do that? She's locked up in a tower and is basically told, like, if you can't do it by this time, we'll kill you, and is in a panic. And this weird little man appears and offers to magic her way into fixing this by spinning all of the hay into yarn,
Right.
into gold, excuse me.
As you do.
Yeah, sure. Yes. Like you do. And their bargaining is that in exchange for doing that, she will give him her firstborn child.
That's a weird, common bargaining trip. Why?
I don't know. Why do you want one? Babies are hard to take care of.
Exactly.
I don't get it.
They have magic,
I suppose. So, but his foil, his one, her way of being like, well, how the hell would I get out of this? Like, what other possible thing could I use? His thing is basically, if you can tell me my name, then it's fine. You don't, the deal's off, and you don't have to give me your baby, basically.
Right.
And so she is able to learn it, and then fools him in turn, and up with his actual name, which is Rumpelstiltskin, which is a weird name.
Yeah. I would not have guessed that.
No. There's also something like, obviously, I know I said it before, but Puck from Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yeah.
This is the trickster character who starts. I mean, so that's a good example of fairies, fair folk doing whatever the hell they want to in that play. He's just causing mischief and mayhem, and winds up causing happy confusion that helps the human characters in order to figure out who they're truly in love with. Yes. Essentially throughout the course.
So helpful and useful.
Sort of, yeah. That's he kind of helps directs things into the right lane. Really, by doing what he's doing. And he also messes around with some of the other people at the same time, just for funsies. Of
course. There was one that I found, because you were talking about the coyote and the raven from the indigenous North American traditions, right? There was one that I found, it's a book by Thomas King, called Green Grass, Running Water.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you know that one, right?
I've read Green Grass, Running Water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
really
it.
Good.
Apparently, it's really fun because Coyote just walks into the story and breaks the fourth wall and just plays around with the logic and the narrative of the story. Yeah. That sounds crazy, but also amazing.
Yeah, it's a very fun, very cool look at much older folk tales and legends of First Nations people. It's very fun.
Right.
It's a really fun one.
Nice.
And it has a really nice sort of allegory to it anyway. It's a cool story. Let's see, what else we're talking about. Oh, I personally am always a fan where I feel like this character is kind of a chaotic neutral because he doesn't really do very much, but he's just there to fuck around, is the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland.
Oh yeah, that's true.
He's just kind of there to be
he doesn't really do one way or the other, right?
No, he kind of gives hints, but he's a chaotic neutral. He's I'm just going to be here and I'm just going to give you half answers, and then I'm going to disappear until you can only see my smile, and then whoosh away, and I will pop back up when it's convenient for me, and that's it.
So I have one that is it's a graphic anthology, right? Still counts, I would say.
Yeah, sure.
So, and also the cool thing about that is that so first of all, graphic novel, but also it kind of has multiple, a lot of them in it.
Oh, okay.
So it's Trickster, Native American Tales by Matt Dembicki.
Okay.
So essentially it's a diverse anthology of traditional tricksters' tales told by Native authors and illustrated by Native, non-Native, and non-Native authors, right?
Okay, cool.
So it has different stories that come from different tribes, and it also has different tricksters that are in it. So Coyote, Raven, Rabbit is in it, etc.
Yes. Yeah, Rabbit does a bit of stuff.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. So very interesting, and also graphic novel. So that is really fun.
Cool. My last one is probably I guess kind of a big one. I'm sure some people could argue against it, but it also falls into the comic graphic novel space because the Joker kind of fits into the trickster. But I believe that the Joker fits into a trickster that becomes a villain personally.
Yeah, but also the Joker doesn't come from any kind of old roots.
No. I find he's just a more modern interpretation of what we would think of, right? Because they don't necessarily have to be a supernatural character. They just often are. Yeah. And this is especially I'm talking the much older comic book Joker and stuff like that before things got real violent. When it was just Robin Banks and stuff. Those sorts of aspects of things. I don't know. I find that there's it might toe a line between certain things, but I do find that because of if you think about it, a character who's very intelligent and cunning, who goes against societal norms to do what they want to do. If you look at the archetype,
a lot of the traits of it, but I think because I mean, I guess others have it as well. Like his ultimate goal has a purpose, right? He wants to do something. He wants to take over Gotham, whatever it is. Yeah. So I feel like that pushes him more into the other
I agree.
lane. But he does have a lot of the archetypes and the traits that he uses. I guess that is his character.
Yeah, that's it exactly.
In the end. Yeah. So I can see that. I'm on the fence about it, but yeah.
Oh, and then my last one. I lied.
That was your last one.
I lied. I didn't have
That was a trick.
My last one is actually, this is funny because you were literally talking about that before and I didn't even get the answer right. But my last one is actually Fool by Christopher Moore, which is told, it's a very comedic book, told entirely from the perspective of the fool in King Lear, specifically, while all the craziness is happening, while the daughters are fighting, while Cordelia is being banished, while all of that stuff is happening, but it's told from like a very comedic perspective.
Okay, yeah.
So he's like kind of like a gross pervert, really. Like he just wants to have sex all the time and stuff, and he keeps like flirting with people, and he keeps getting stuck in the middle of things, and then unwittingly also has to help them
of course, yes.
fix everything. And he's like, oh God, why am I doing this? Because he's like, I'm just supposed to be the court jester, guys. But it is like it's a really funny book. I haven't read it in a long time, but it made me laugh out loud. It's very funny.
Okay.
We have
That's a different version of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, cool. So, I mean, listen, that was like a brief overview of everything because this could go on for ages with all of the tricksters of yore that exist in the world. But this is kind of just like an overview of everything to get us started for the month. Yay. We're going to continue kind of like deep dives. Like I said, later in the month, we're going to talk about unreliable narrators, and we're going to get into like that side of things, maybe more modern tricksters, and then, keep everything going on that end for April.
That's it. It's going to be fun.
So it's April Fool's for the whole month here. Wow, okay. He never plays April Fool's pranks on me, by the way.
Like, it will happen.
No, it won't.
Yes,
I'm really bad with like surprises and like pranks and stuff. I don't react very well to them, so I just feel like you're never going to do it.
I'm going to do it in a way that I can MacGyver it and then just leave, and it happens during the day. So.
Okay, but I'm still going to be mad about it later.
But you'll be mad later.
Sure. Anyway, in the meantime, while Arthur tries to just like devise some sort of stupid plan, or
cunning plan, thank you.
Yeah, sure. To pull off sometime this month, I guess. You can check out, obviously, like we said at the top of the episode, you can check out everything we've got going on over on the website at fullybooked.ca and sign up for the newsletter over there should you choose to do so as well. And then, of course, all of our social media, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky.
Just the whole thing.
Fully Booked CA. Just look for it and you will find us on there. But until next week, guys, keep on reading.
Ciao, guys.